Your motorcycle has been seized and will be auctioned this Saturday. The text message hit like a physical blow. My coffee mug shattered on the kitchen floor as I stared at my phone in disbelief. My $42,000 custom Harley. Gone. I sprinted. Outside in my bathrobe, neighbors watching as I stood frozen before the empty space in my driveway where my road glide should have been. The same road glide prototype I'd personally designed, the one showcasing technology no competitor had seen. Yet, looking for something? Called a smug voice. Tom Peterson leaned against his mailbox across the street, twirling a set of keys. Behind him sat a brand new tow truck with Peterson's Towing freshly painted on the side. "Where's my bike?" I demanded, fists clenched. He pointed to the orange. "Violation notice on my garage. Motorcycles prohibited by HOA regulations. This rule doesn't exist." I ripped it off, reading the perfect cursive signature. Margaret Whitmore, HOA President. Margaret, the woman who'd already fined me for grass being half an inch too tall. 6 months in this neighborhood, and she'd made herself my nemesis. "It'll be first at Saturday's auction," Tom smirked. "Unless you've got $5,000 cash for the recovery fee." It clicked instantly. This wasn't about property values, it was a scam. Margaret creates violations. Tom tows vehicles. They split the profits. They had no idea who they'd just targeted, or what was coming for them. I spent 3 hours combing through HOA bylaws that night. No rule against motorcycles existed. Margaret had fabricated it. But what I uncovered was worse. Every towing operation handled exclusively by Peterson's Towing, astronomical fees, and triple the number of tows since Margaret took office. This wasn't just about my Harley anymore. They took my grandson's first car while we were at his graduation. Mrs. Chen whispered, hands trembling around her teacup in my kitchen. $3,000 to get it back. We couldn't afford it. The Garcias lost their vintage Triumph during a family vacation. Mr. Jackson sold his classic Mustang after impound fees reached $5,000. Each story revealed the same pattern: Margaret's fabricated violations, Tom's predatory towing, and homeowners forced to pay or lose cherished vehicles. I created a timeline on my living room wall: property records, bank statements, towing receipts. The pattern was undeniable. 6 months ago, Margaret moved all HOA funds to a small bank where Tom Peterson sat on the board of directors. 3 months later, Peterson's Towing received an exclusive contract. Since then, they'd collected $47,000 in community enforcement fees. My phone buzzed. Emergency. HOA board meeting, vehicle policy updates, tomorrow 9 a.m. Through my window, I spotted Margaret and Tom in her driveway, whispering, glancing toward my empty garage. Margaret flipped through a folder labeled Auction Inventory. I snapped photos with my telephoto lens. Evidence for later. That night, my security camera's motion alert jolted me awake at 5:30 a.m. The grainy night vision footage sent adrenaline surging. A tow truck backing into my neighbor Sarah's driveway, hauling away her son's motorcycle. By dawn, 3 more bikes had vanished from the neighborhood. My phone pinged with a news alert. Local auction house announces specialty motorcycle sale this Saturday. Premium vehicles available. They were moving. Fast. Too fast. "Can they actually do this?" asked Raj, showing me the violation notice on his door. "My motorcycle's been here for years without issues." "It's not legal," I assured him, "but they're counting on no one fighting back." My assistant Maria called from the office. "The board wants to know why you haven't responded to their messages about the Tokyo deal. Tell them I'm handling a personal matter." I couldn't explain that I was investigating an HOA president instead of finalizing our biggest international partnership in years. "Sir, the shareholders' meeting is Tuesday. They're expecting your presentation on the new road glide design, the one you had at home, the prototype plans. They were in the saddlebag of my seized Harley." I drove to Peterson's Towing, finding a fortress-like compound with 8-foot fences topped with barbed wire. Through the gates, I spotted dozens of motorcycles, including my road glide, lined up for inspection. Tom supervised as workers photographed each bike. "Can I help you?" A security guard blocked my entrance. "My motorcycle was towed illegally. I'd like to recover it." "Office opens at 9 a.m. tomorrow." He smirked. "Retrieval fees start at $1,500, cash only. Tomorrow would be too late." Back home, Sarah from the county clerk's office called. "You were right. I checked the property records. 23 homes sold below market value after towing incidents. Guess who purchased them through shell companies? Margaret and Tom. Bingo. They've made millions flipping these properties, i.e., dug deeper, tracking bank transfers between Margaret's HOA account and Tom's towing company. The scheme was bigger than I imagined. They'd manipulated the entire neighborhood economy through fear and intimidation. My doorbell rang at sunset. Margaret stood there, pearl necklace gleaming, holding another orange notice. Just a friendly reminder about Saturday's vehicle auction. She smiled thinly. "Abandoned property must be liquidated per community guidelines." My Harley wasn't abandoned. It was stolen. Her smile tightened. "Unauthorized vehicles are subject to community regulations. Perhaps if you'd attended our monthly meetings." "You mean where you pass fake rules without proper votes?" Something flashed in her eyes. Surprise, then calculation. "The board unanimously approved all regulations." "A board consisting of you, your husband, and Tom Peterson. Quite the coincidence." She stepped back. "We maintain property values while people like you try to turn our community into a motorcycle rally. This neighborhood has standards. So do I." I held up my phone, displaying the bank transfer records. "Care to explain these?" She blanched, composure cracking momentarily before the mask returned. "I don't know what you think you're doing, but you're making a serious mistake." "No, Margaret. You made the mistake when you targeted my Harley." As she stormed away, I made 2 calls. First to Ry Martinez, president of the State Motorcycle Rights Association. "Ry, remember when we fought that discriminatory zoning law? I need a favor." The second call went to our company's legal team. "I need everything you've got on property seizure laws and HOA regulations by morning." Margaret and Tom had built their empire on intimidation. They assumed no one would fight back. Time to prove them wrong. At 9 a.m., I entered the HOA office. Margaret sat behind her desk like a queen, Tom leaning against the wall, twirling his tow truck keys. "Mr. Zeit, right on time." She slid a folder across the desk, containing a highlighted passage. Article 7, Section 12. No recreational vehicles may be stored in driveways. "This is in the official HOA bylaws?" I asked, examining the document. "Revised last month. All residents were notified." Her voice dripped with condescension. "Some of us can't afford neighborhoods overrun with motorcycles." Through the glass door, I caught Tom slipping something into Margaret's desk drawer. Cash. My blood boiled. "The auction proceeds tomorrow as scheduled," Margaret continued. "However, given your enthusiasm for that motorcycle, we could arrange a private sale. $50,000 should cover it." Her smile didn't reach her eyes. "They were trying to extort me for my own property. That's more than the bike is worth." Value is subjective, isn't it? Especially when items hold sentimental importance. The prototype plans. Somehow they knew. I left the office shaking with rage, calling our legal team again. Their response crushed my last hope. The HOA regulations were improperly filed, but technically legal. Fighting. This could take months. Months I didn't have. The auction was tomorrow. Back home, I found my garage door spray painted with the words, "No bikes allowed." My neighbors watched from behind curtains, too afraid to help. Years of intimidation had worked. My phone buzzed with a voicemail from Maria. The board is furious. They're meeting to discuss your position as CEO. Where are the prototype plans? Everything was collapsing. My career, my property, my reputation. I stared at the evidence wall. Bank statements, property records, towing receipts, all pointing to Margaret and Tom's corruption, yet not enough to stop them in time. My neighbor Sarah texted, "They're prepping your bike for auction right now. Special preview for select buyers tonight." I drove past Peterson's Towing, watching wealthy collectors examining my Harley under floodlights. One man ran his fingers over the custom leather seat covering my hidden compartment with the prototype plans. "Bidding starts at $30,000, Tom announced. This beauty belonged to some hotshot who didn't understand our community values. I slumped in my car, defeated. Years of work, my dream bike, my career, all about to be sold to the highest bidder because I dared to park a motorcycle in my own driveway. Then my phone lit up with a response from Rye. "Cavalry's coming, hold tight." Maybe, just maybe, there was still a way to fight back. Auction day dawned with perfect blue skies, ideal for Margaret's carefully orchestrated theft. By 7:30 a.m., I was methodically setting up cameras around my property, focusing each lens on the auction lot where my Harley sat gleaming among other abandoned vehicles. Each click of the shutter felt like loading ammunition. At 8 a.m., Margaret emerged in a pressed pastel suit, clipboard in hand, directing workers to arrange chairs before the auction platform. Tom tested the microphone while collectors mingled, sipping coffee, eyeing motorcycles like vultures surveying carrion. I checked my watch. 8:10 a.m. Nothing yet. Margaret caught sight of me watching from my driveway and tilted her head in mock sympathy before drawing a finger across her throat. Message received. At 8:15 a.m., the first distant rumble reached my ears, then another, and another. The unfamiliar sound drew curious neighbors to their porches. Margaret froze mid-sentence, coffee cup suspended halfway to her lips as the rumbling grew louder, transforming into the unmistakable roar of dozens of motorcycle engines. Within minutes, the peaceful suburban street transformed as hundreds of motorcycles flooded our neighborhood. Harleys, Indians, Triumphs, Ducatis, riders, in leather vests representing every motorcycle club in the state. Veterans Motorcycle Club, Ladies of Chrome, Classic Riders Association, more groups than I could count. Margaret's garden hose slipped from her hands, soaking her designer shoes as she frantically dialed her phone. "Tom," she hissed, "get security. Here now." But Tom had his own problems. Across town, news vans were parking outside Peterson's Towing. I'd made sure Jane Wong from Channel 7 received an anonymous package containing bank records, forged HOA documents, and testimony from dozens of victims. Ray Martinez, president of the State Motorcycle Rights Association, pulled up beside me on his thundering Harley, silver beard flowing over his leather vest covered in patches. "Good morning, Chief," he nodded, extending his hand. "Your cavalry has arrived." I smiled for the first time in days. Impeccable timing. When the CEO of Harley-Davidson calls in a favor, we answer. He surveyed the growing crowd of bikers. 2,000 riders from across the state, not bad for 24 hours' notice, Margaret. Stormed toward us, face contorted with rage. "This is private property. You can't bring these people here." "Actually, Margaret," came a quiet voice behind her. Mrs. Chen, the elderly woman whose grandson's car had been towed, stood holding official documents. "We checked the bylaws. There's nothing against organized community events." Around us, the neighborhood transformed. The Rodriguez family set up a lemonade stand for the riders. The Patel kids ran around taking photos of motorcycles for a school project. Even grumpy Mr. Johnson was showing off his vintage Indian to an amazed crowd. Margaret's face turned purple watching her neighborhood turn against her. "I'm calling the police." I pointed down the street where Officer Rivera, a longtime rider himself, was already there, chatting with Rai while accepting cookies from Mrs. Chen. Already handled, a black SUV pulled up. 2 people in suits stepped out holding official documents. "Margaret Whitmore, we're from the district attorney's office. We have some questions about HOA fund misappropriation and fraudulent property seizures." "This is absurd," Margaret sputtered, backing toward Tom, who had finally arrived, face ashen. "We maintain community standards." By stealing vehicles and extorting neighbors, I stepped forward, the crowd parting. "Or by forcing people to sell their homes so you can flip them for profit." Tom grabbed Margaret's arm. "Don't say another word." I approached the auction platform, taking the microphone. The crowd hushed. "For those who don't know me, my name is Alex Zeit." My voice echoed across the suddenly silent gathering. 6 months ago, I moved here looking for a quiet community where I could park my motorcycle and live in peace. Margaret snorted. "Your motorcycle decreases property values." "My custom 2023 Harley-Davidson Road Glide." I smiled. "The one worth more than your house?" "You have no right," Tom began. "No, you had no right to create fake rules, tow legally parked vehicles, and extort your neighbors." I projected photographs on a screen behind me, bank transfers, property records, forged documents. "You've stolen from everyone here through your scheme." Margaret lunged for the microphone, but security held her back. "What you didn't know when you towed my motorcycle," I continued, pulling out my company ID, "is that I'm not just a motorcycle enthusiast. I'm the chief executive officer of Harley-Davidson Motor Company." The collective gasp from the crowd was followed by stunned silence, then thunderous applause and motorcycle engines revving in support. Margaret turned pale. "That's impossible, very possible." I tossed her a business card. "And that Harley you seized contained proprietary designs worth millions. Corporate espionage carries serious penalties." As if on cue, federal agents approached with additional warrants. "We'll need access to your financial records, Ms. Whitmore." Margaret's empire crumbled before my eyes. Neighbors stepped forward one by one, sharing stories of intimidation, fraud, and theft. Tom tried to flee but found his tow truck blocked by a wall of motorcycles. Jane Wong pushed through the crowd, camera crew in tow. "Mr. Zeit, Channel 7 News. Is it true that an HOA president attempted to steal and sell proprietary Harley-Davidson designs?" I smiled into the camera. "What's true is that corruption only thrives when good people stay silent. Today, this community found its voice." Behind me, officers were escorting Margaret and Tom to separate patrol cars. The DA approached with my Harley keys. "Your property, sir. We'll need it as evidence eventually, but for now, it's yours." I ran my hand over the custom leather seat, relieved to find the hidden compartment still sealed. The prototype plans were safe. Rai clapped my shoulder. Not how I expected the CEO of Harley-Davidson to spend his weekend. Sometimes you have to fight battles you didn't choose. I swung my leg over my recovered Harley, feeling its familiar rumble as the engine roared to life. Margaret picked the wrong motorcycle to steal. The crowd erupted in cheers as I circled the auction lot once, stopping before Mrs. Chen. "I believe your grandson needs his car back." Her eyes glistened with tears. "Thank you." "Don't thank me." I revved the engine. "Thank the power of community." 1 month later, I stood before my garage watching neighborhood kids admire my Harley. The "No Bikes Allowed" graffiti had been replaced with a mural of motorcycles painted by local artists. The emergency HOA meeting had been unanimous. Margaret and Tom were permanently removed from the board. But we didn't stop there. Instead of replacing them with more bureaucrats, we created community-led initiatives, motorcycle safety courses, a scholarship fund for young mechanics, and monthly neighborhood bike shows. This community didn't need stricter rules. It needed connection. Margaret and Tom faced multiple felony charges: fraud, extortion, embezzlement. The homes they'd acquired through intimidation were returned to their rightful owners. Mrs. Chen's grandson got his car back. The Garcias' vintage Triumph was restored at Harley-Davidson's expense, and my prototype plans, they became our best-selling model, with a portion of proceeds funding anti-corruption initiatives in HOAs nationwide. 6 months later, I received an unexpected letter from Margaret's new neighborhood across town. She was complaining about motorcycle noise. I laughed and sent her a Harley-Davidson catalog with a note: "Bikes still available at employee discount. CEO." Sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even. It's building something better from the wreckage your enemies tried to destroy. The most dangerous people aren't always those with the most power, but those who abuse it. Whether in a small HOA, workplace, or government, corruption takes root when people stop questioning authority. Sometimes all it takes is one person willing to stand up. Sometimes that person is you.